Welcome to Business with Beers, a podcast for business owners who want to scale their business to massively grow their income and contribution by investing in people, process, and technology. I am your host, Brian Beers. This week, we've got an awesome show with Hemal Badiani. Hemal transitioned from being a senior vice president with Wells Fargo to now the founder and managing partner of Exponential Equity. Exponential Equity is a multifamily syndication investment firm, and in just 7 months, they've grown from zero to $100 million under management with over 1,200 doors. 7 months. Impressive. All of this in a very competitive market. In this episode, Hemal talks about some lessons that he learned from consulting with some of the biggest companies in the world and a tough decision that he had to make to shut down a profitable business that he owned so he could focus full time on creating this new company. If you enjoy this episode, please share it with your friends, rate and review with your favorite part to help us reach more people. And if you'd like to learn more about the topics covered in this podcast and more, check out brianbeers.com to sign up for my free newsletter delivering content directly to your inbox. Welcome to the show, Hemal.
Nice to be here, and thank you for inviting me, Brian.
Fantastic. So my first question is always, this wouldn't be Business with Beers. If we were at a bar having a drink right now, what would we be drinking?
I would definitely be with a glass of scotch, probably maximum one ice cube. I'm a purist from that standpoint. No cocktails for me then.
All right, that's great. Yeah, I like a bourbon straight with a giant ball of ice.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. So if you could share your story, who you are, what you do, where you live, and go from there.
Yeah. First, the good stuff. Live in Charlotte, North Carolina, best place on earth. And live with my wife and twin kids, 5-year-olds, boy and girl. And over the last 20 years or so, from a professional standpoint, I was mainly in the management consulting business. So lived in 3 continents, worked from everybody from Disney theme parks to the Vatican, really helped a lot of Fortune 100 companies treat their businesses as they're trying to scale, diversify, innovate, bring efficiency, grow, whatever the case may be. So it's really, really amazing to standing there in front of giants and titans in each of those industries, Fortune 100 companies, the CEOs, and really smart people, learn from them as much as I would consult with them. But that was a life on the plane. So at some point, the kiddos happened. Decided to hang up my traveling boots, join the financial world. I was a senior vice president for a bank for a while. And that allowed me to introspect what I wanted to do, where did I want to bring my competencies in terms of businesses, and came from a family background of business owners as well. So started dabbling and experimenting with ideas that I could scale. So I initially created an outsourcing company, then a private lending firm, and then residential real estate. And all of them were amazing in terms of instituting the systems and processes and hiring employees and scaling them really, really fast, typically in 12 months or so. But wasn't something that I was just truly passionate about. So it started becoming another job. So decided to exit them, most of them profitably, and eventually landed in the commercial real estate space in the heart of COVID.
Okay. And so we'll get into what you're currently doing. I guess one of my first questions is, so when you were a consultant, you said working with some of these big companies, what were some of those things that you learned? You said working with Disney, I forget some of the other companies, you said the Vatican, I think.
Yeah. So I think everybody has similar problems, right? That's one thing I learned. The second thing is running a $10 million business versus a $1 billion business is completely different, right? And to have a slice of 1% of $1 billion and 100% of 10 million are the same thing from a net worth and liquidity and all of that standpoint. But the processes, the levels of management, sometimes the bureaucracy, the organizational structure, all of that is different. So when I was thinking about what type of business I wanted to build, how scalable, how large I wanted to go for my firm, what should my vision and stretch goal be, I really had to think hard, right? Did I want to be that CEO of a $1 billion company that, always is putting out different fires, very public fires sometimes, or I want to have a small private firm that could really make me a lot of money, handful of employees, And I've decided to have that larger scale company because that's the way I follow processes. And the third thing was it was all about culture, right? Regardless of the size of the company, the culture that you set in, whether it's people first or profits, it's how much are you taking care of your customers, how much is it customer centric, is it employee centric, what are you doing from a daily routine standpoint, what is your mission statement say? All of those things as you're building your brand and your entity, they really matter. As leadership changes, as the organizations pivot towards different things, sometimes you have to go back to those basics and realize what do you stand for. And once you know what you stand for, once you figure out your why, it's not just for an individual. Even large organizations really need to be close to their why to be a sustainable brand and a company.
Yeah, that resonates a lot with me. The thing I say is, we have this future vision that we want to create. And, a lot of that is the why that you want to get there. And what's the lifestyle? Where do you want to live? All these things in the vision. And then what I say is we kind of set these goals, and their goals have to align with creating that future vision. And if they don't, then it's like, you're spending all this time, energy, and effort on something that's not actually getting to where you want to go. And then it's, what's the point? So, I think having that core, those core values to build upon, but then know what direction you're going in, is critical for every business. And obviously, the larger you become, also the less probably influence that person has. Right, you're the CEO of Disney or whatever it is.
Yeah.
He can have all this great vision and strategy that he talks with his executive team, but is that message getting passed down, and how's it actually executing in the field? Which becomes very difficult. So
that's a great point. Influencing a few people who you're in direct conversations with versus influencing sometimes hundreds of thousands of employees that some of these companies had. It's just so much more difficult, so much longer. You almost have to create a bell curve, right? These are going to be my early adopters, and these are always going to be the 10% that's never going to adapt to the new change, and how do you deal with all of that, and the morale, the attrition, all of that comes down to science. And it's just amazing to watch a large organization that is so complex to function at different levels. Very fascinating.
Yep. Great. So you said you're now in commercial real estate. Can you expand on that?
Yeah. So I just before COVID hit, I found a couple of mentors and a couple of events that I could hit February and March of 2020 that explained this magical concept called real estate syndication. Right, essentially a group of investors come in and pool money just like a joint venture would, but there are two classes of shares. One is the passive investor that just puts in the money. And then there are the active partners who do all the work and get a small slice of the profits based on the business plan they built in. And through this model, people who initially I was a passive investor, people like myself who have their jobs and families and other things to attend, and investing and building competency around real estate is not a priority. Don't want to worry about tenants and toilets, can put in their money in predictable returns and kind of get a good set of returns over a period of time. So that was something that was appealing to me. And so started passively investing in some of these large scale commercial multifamily or apartment community type of projects, and quickly realized that this is something as a business for myself is A, scalable, B, impacts so many lives because you're dealing with 300-400 families that you could serve at a time. You could buy a 300-400 apartment community through this process and change the renovation aspect, bring more amenities, bring safety to those communities. It really, really impacts so many people. So serving a mission that I was very close to, and it was something that was just so scalable that I became truly passionate about. So I opened my company in September of 2020. And over the last 8 months, we did 5 transactions, about 800 units. And $55 million in commercial real estate that we've acquired. And we've got in the next 30 days or so, this is May 25th, so by first week of July, we're closing on a $45 million project in Houston, 460 units. And we've got a few development projects in the pipeline. We've grown the company to 7 employees, going into 10. So just an exciting time, incredible momentum that we're grateful for in a very short period of time.
So just to make sure I heard you right. So you had this idea in March, February, said, hey, I'm going to get into commercial real estate syndication. You're going to pull money together, go out and buy these big projects. So you started in September, and then since then you said five transactions, 800 doors you currently have, and another 460 closing pretty soon. It's a super impressive growth in 6 months or 7 months.
Yeah, very excited. I mean, I had the good fortune of finding folks who wanted to partner up and be employees of the firm. My director of acquisitions, for example, moved his entire family from Raleigh to Charlotte to join the firm, even though I didn't pay him a penny for the first 5 months, right? So he was using his own money he was in the acquisitions business freelancing. He was using his own funds to help source opportunities for us, and we closed on that. So yeah, it's been an incredible year.
So you said you're the one in Houston. Where are the other 5? What markets?
Yep. So our new development project, 150 units, is in Charlotte, North Carolina. The only one local here. 246 units we just closed in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. We own 208 units in Tulsa, Oklahoma, another 128 in Louisiana, and then 64 units in Illinois, right by Champaign, Illinois. Okay.
Is there a certain type of market that you're looking to invest in?
Yeah, so we've honed in. What we found out was this, especially when you think of a core asset in the COVID time period, like multifamily apartments, the hotels and retail and all of that, everybody knows office buildings got hit, retail centers got hit. But food, housing, and food and shelter are 2 typical core items that, are not recession resistant, but some things like pandemic don't kill those returns out. So a lot of opportunities in the multifamily space with a lot of institutional investors have come in. And that's the reason why we need to keep our markets open. So we look at pretty much the entire Southeast, major cities and secondary markets, and Texas and Oklahoma and Kansas City, Missouri. So we've got like 12 to 15 markets that are core, and we keep on buying there very intentionally because we want to build a vertically integrated firm. We want to scale from that standpoint, build our own property management, our own construction management portfolio, our own supply chain at some point, and diversify into multiple asset classes, eventually hotels, retail, all of that as it still comes at a discount by those assets as well.
How are you finding the properties? I mean, I've talked to many other investors who say, the prices are crazy and they can't find anything. How are you? I mean, you got, 6 deals now, and how are you finding them?
Yeah, it's a combination of 3-pronged approach. We do, obviously a long-standing over the last 6-8 months. My acquisitions team of 3 people have spent thousands of dollars in taking brokers to steakhouses and car clubs and dinners and, bidding on right strategic projects that we came close to establish the seriousness of the relationship. So that's one approach. The second is, hitting all the wholesalers, direct to seller type of communicators, and really teaching them about our buy box. And the third thing is doing some direct seller marketing. We don't do much of it now, given that we have our name out there and deal flow comes pretty easily to us. But all this was hinged upon the infrastructure to take and analyze deals quickly. So right now, we're in the process of hiring 3 VAs. Actually, we've hired them now 2 weeks back, and we're doing 24/7 underwriting. So send all the data to them to cleanse in the night. And then
your virtual assistants are doing your underwriting, that you're saying?
Yeah, so they do the data cleansing, and we've built an institutional model over the last 6 months that has a set of automations. So essentially allows us to look at 150 deals a month right now. And so every quarter when we put in 500 deals in that quarter that we have analyzed, we put in probably a dozen to 2 dozen offers out there. We only want to win 1 or 2. That is a $30 to $50 million project for us to continue progressing.
So you got this lead funnel, you're getting stuff from brokers, potentially some off market, I guess also through what's on market, right? Through LoopNet, Corexy and all that. So you're getting all these OMs, you're sending them to your VAs, they're crunching the numbers, figuring out which ones make sense. And then you said 12 to whatever, 20 offers a month.
Yeah. So out of the 150 a month, VAs will do the crunching, base data, kill some deals, and it comes from my acquisitions team. They do the underwriting and the analysis, see creative ways to salvage the deal or make sense. Out of 150 deals, probably 135 to 140 gets killed in this process. And the 5 to 10 that we have to look at and comes to my desk. And then my CEO is the no guy of the firm, and my acquisitions team are the yes guys, right? So they have to present the case on why this opportunity is the next best thing to sliced bread. And my CEO would try and kill the deal at that stage. If it doesn't work out, then if it works out, then next thing we know is my acquisitions team is on a plane, we take 300 pictures, we do mystery shopping, and before we put an offer, we are very serious about buying that asset. We just don't put offers willy-nilly.
I see. Okay. That's great. It's impressive. So from the investor standpoint, how many investors do you have?
We have 80 retail investors right now that have invested in different deals with us.
And how much have you raised?
So far, we have raised about $12 million.
Okay.
And for this Houston project, we'll raise another $9 million.
Okay. And I know every deal is different, but like, what's your target return to an investor? If they're going to invest with you, is it an IRR, is it cash on cash? Or like, what has to make sense?
Target for a good C-class vintage, which is 60s to 80s built. We like to target an 18 plus IRR and 20 plus annual return. So in 5 years, essentially doubling someone's money.
So an equity multiple of two or higher.
2 or higher.
Okay. And are there a lot of renovations being involved in that, some CapEx in the beginning, or is your kind of model some of this more, cash flows from day one, and then we're just improving operations? Yeah,
lesser cash flow on year one, right? These are heavy value add, elbow grease type of deals that I believe seriously that this is the decade of the operator, right? So we are trying again systematically from our backgrounds, building competencies on everything from contesting FEMA maps to contracts with cable companies to finding all those niches where we can increase the income and reduce the rent rate systematically. We do all those always have that list in our repertoire that we look at the asset from. And that's a reason why good core 2015 and above deals that mostly REITs and others are taking on right now, we figure we just cannot compete. We cannot provide an 8% return to our investors and buy an asset at this crazy valuation at this stage. It's better to build it.
Yep. Okay. And do you have a target hold time on these? 5 years?
Yeah, typically 5 years with all the laws around tax deductions that are available right now to maximize for our passive investors the tax deduction available. If they can utilize it, a good 5 year hold or less seems to be the right strategy.
Okay, great. Got a few questions to get into you. You're the CEO of the company. Is that correct? You're the leader. Talk to me about, you said you had some mentors in your life. Who is one of your mentors kind of early on? What did they teach you that you still, impacts you today?
Yeah. So, I hired a performance coach in 2020. This is a great story. So I was, I had my residential wholesaling and flipping business, and we had quite a few VAs there and onshore employees, very successful, very transactional business, but, was looking at distressed properties and distressed property owners. So my heart wasn't in it. So end of 2019, beginning of 2020, I was really in a bind where I had this profitable business that I didn't know what to do with. Didn't know how to shut it down, obviously, because it loses a lot of money. And also didn't have anything else to look up to from a business venture standpoint. So it was like climbing down a mountain, but no other mountain to climb back up to from a competency standpoint. So at this stage, I was looking at Bigger Pockets, Brandon Turner, and he talked about a performance coach, Jason Breeze. and I reached out to Jason, and my first call, I explained to him what I'm going through in my mind, and he essentially asked me to shut it down. And his rationale was, you really need to stop spending energy that you think that's your ideal, but it's not, because you didn't come all the way traveling globally, shaking hands with CEOs and CEOs to build a wholesaling flipping company or a transactional business. You're meant to build a multi-billion-dollar company, and you got to find that. And so I took his advice, and really, financial hit from a pocket standpoint. Obviously, I had my W-2 at still, and everything was fine, but I actually shut down my business, let all the employees go with severance packages, and didn't have anything to look up to. And that's where I started finding what my next new idea could be. And that's how I landed in the commercial real estate. So sometimes you got to make internal tough decisions and really align with your energy and what you really want to do, and not just get scared about short-term goals and financials at the very least, to really make your heart happy. And I'm at an extremely happy place right now.
That's great. Did you hire him after that?
Yeah, he was my coach for 1 full year. Yeah.
Okay, that's great. So it's a really tough decision, right? You have this income that you're just shutting it down. Why did you try to sell it, or did you not want to sell it?
It was a transactional business, right? So it was, we were sending 70,000 texts a month. We had the systems and processes done. And at that stage, maybe I could have sold it.
Because you had systems, you had processes, right? You had remote staff, I assume. You had contacts lists. You weren't swinging the hammer, right?
Yeah, no, you're right. Maybe it might have taken more time, and maybe COVID would have ahead. So it would have been an enticing opportunity, but I don't think like that. If I make a decision, I just go with it, and it's completely a switch flipping out.
It's funny though, it speaks to people who are looking to buy a business. Sometimes you never know, like the person on the other side, like if someone came to you to offer, you probably would have taken it, even before the Jason conversation.
Yeah.
So sometimes just reach, if someone wants to be in a business, you want to be in a flipping business, you want to be in a, haircuttery business, you just reach out to owners, and just like you reach out to sellers for their property, you never know what they're going to say. Like the worst they say is no.
Yeah, that's right. But I'm grateful that whole business taught a lot about sales and negotiation and contracts and residential construction side that I can carry forward in the commercial side. And
the volume and the systems you have to set up to handle all the communications and the follow-up and
CRM systems.
Yeah. What's one of the biggest challenges or failures you've had, and what did you learn from it throughout your career?
Yeah, failures, personally, the biggest challenge was transitions, right? I was on that high of that corporate ladder, and I was in the consulting business, I was a managing director, corporate jets, vested stock, and could have made a very senior leader in a firm that's 450,000 employees. So it came with its own level of comfort and respect and all of that, executive assistants and what have you. And it put me a little away from my family, and it took an incident that my daughter, my twins, son and daughter. My daughter was 1 year old, and she had a skull fracture, and I was up in Boston serving a client, and long story short, I couldn't reach to be with her on time. She was completely fine, didn't need any surgery and all of that, but made me realize what was important as I was climbing that ladder. So that was a big challenge. And again, it came to a point in time when you start seeking about other things and meanings of life, and that it's a continuous evolution, right? And in terms of mistakes, we make mistakes every day. And I could write a book every month on the mistakes we make, personally and professionally.
Yep. And it comes down to like a values hierarchy, right? Like, do you value your job or your family, and do you value, this or that? And it's kind of making those decisions. And obviously your family's the most important thing, and you got to be there, and all the money and the jets in the world means nothing if you can't see your kids, right?
Exactly. It takes sometimes an incident or a moment of desperation or inspiration to realize that. Or sometimes you forget where you are, and take things for granted, some parts of your life. So
yeah, and probably because it gets a little bit worse, right? Every day, you don't really feel it, right?
Yeah.
And it's like a rubber band that keeps getting stretched and stretched until it, then breaks. Then you've got a problem. So, great. So do you have could you give me 3 habits or a couple habits that you do kind of every day that you attribute to kind of your success? I mean, you've created massive success in your new business. What are some of those habits?
Yeah. So one is meditation of some sort, right? It doesn't have to be chanting or anything, but just sitting down and numbing down the voices in my head that always are talking to really kind of put myself in perspective of the grander cosmos, right, where we are. And that always allows me to be high performing throughout the day. Is just taking that few minutes, maybe sometimes more than one time a day, to slowing down. Second thing is time management, right? So everything needs to be on the calendar. All important things, personal and professional, right? So date nights, playtime with the kiddos, and every meeting, all of that needs to be on the calendar. And every Sunday, I plan 2 weeks out. So if somebody contacts me and calls me and say, "Hey, I love what you're doing, love to speak with you," I never give the first week or this week or the next week. It has to be 2 weeks out. That allows me to have ample time to rejuggle things, replan my calendar on the last few days, and really have that time to do some work. And the third thing is just consistency and persistency of the work that I do. It's just every day, as I look at my morning, it's just a set of routines, talking to my employees, talking to my partners, knowing what I need to put down. So putting down systems in terms of not having thoughts in my brain, but putting them down to paper. I like to be a paper guy. I like to have my notepad, scribble things down. And that allows me to, not think about what things I need to do next, but it's just a list of action items that I just systematically go down to. It's just such an energy state. And as you know, Brian, we find out over a period of time that the biggest factor is not time, but it's energy throughout the day. Right? And you can only make so many decisions in your life in a single day, and where you place your energy is where you place all your mental effort, all the things, your awareness, and it grows, right? So that's what I try to do more of, is keep down the list of what I need to do versus what others need to do, and just go through the list.
Yep. Yeah, it's great. I heard recently this quote about, you don't manage your time, manage your focus. And it's like, what are you focusing on? If you're trying to do a million things at once, obviously you're not focused, versus you're very intentional about achieving this task, or you're knocking out your to-do list. You get it done, you feel accomplished.
Yeah.
You're focused on then spending time with your kids and being 100% present, right? When you're there, not focused on work. And obviously we use our calendars and time management to help separate that, but it's when you're in the moment, what are you focused on? I think that's the biggest challenge we all face, whether business owners or anybody. So sounds like, you've got some good systems and strategies in place to accomplish that. So what's next? Where, what are your goals? Where do you want to take your company?
Yeah.
What's the future look like?
So the company, again, as I mentioned, we introspected what size of company do we want to be. And my goal and vision for the company is to be $1 billion in assets under management in 18 months. So in the first 10 months, we went from 0 to 100. We got to grow 10x in 18 more months. And that's not something that we're just trying to achieve. It's something that we know, and the way we're creating the business is every division. Like, we've started now the new development and ground-up construction division with a couple of projects, couple of starts here in Charlotte. Now it's going into a crazy momentum where we actually end the contract for 160 acres of land. So that could be a $200 million project if we get involved in that, or to do it soup to nuts, as an example. So it's just creating each division, creating the horizontals for supply chain, for marketing, for technology, creating a company that actually operates like a Fortune 100 firm, regardless of the size it is in, and bringing in that culture and values that I've seen some companies do well, some companies don't, but I want to imbibe in my own organization and keep it, top 10 places to work in the United States, ideally. So that's kind of the vision and goal from that perspective. I am not in my phase of life that I'm looking to sit on a beach in Hawaii and enjoy passive income or anything of that sort. I really am looking to build a business, and to that end, I work 7 days a week, sometimes to a fault. But I'd love to, as I now quit my W-2 after 2 decades of being a senior executive in various firms. I really look to balance some of my work with my personal life and my kids and my wife, and take more vacations, etc., while working really crazy and really hard, and really with a driven attitude to build something that I truly value and cherish.
Right. And there's some big goals, I mean, some people set goals that are just a little bit better, right? I mean, your goals are huge. But that makes you think differently, right? You want a 10X. Yeah. You think a little bit differently than if your goal was just 10% better.
Exactly. Every conversation has to align to that goal that you just mentioned, right? Do we want to have a conversation that if you want to be $1 billion company, do you want to have a conversation with a $50,000 investor or an institutional investor in a pension fund eventually, right? And so do you want to market your brand towards a new investor or an institutional investor? All those decisions on a daily basis, how you shape your brand, how you shape your pitch, how you talk to people, what people you talk to, who you connect with, what deals you buy, all of that is shaped by that vision and the goal. And that's why that vision is super important.
And for you, that vision is to be the institutional size pension one, right? Not the individual investor.
Eventually, yes. Eventually. Always have the aspect of retail investments, because I came about this as passive investments, and I know how it can change someone's lives, especially if their sole strategy from an investment is to put in money in 401ks or stocks or cryptos. A predictable, real, tangible asset like real estate in the United States, from a risk spectrum standpoint, is an amazing diversification strategy. Provides a lot of tax deductions and allows you to have that cash flow that you can offset with your job income or business income at some point, or at least supplement that. So we'd always take on the retail investors, but at some point have larger projects and larger check sizes to work with.
Yeah, that's great. And super impressive. So any book recommendations that you have that you've recently read or have had an impact on you?
Yeah, I'm recently reading 2 books. The Tribe of Millionaires. Now that I joined the tribe, this first time I got to read the Tribe of Millionaires, and it's such a great, simple story, right? And distills all the stuff from Think and Grow Rich and other development books that successful people kind of inherently know, but spelled it out. So I would highly recommend people who might not have read that. But recently, Atomic Habits. Incremental changes, very practical changes to your life on whatever you want to try and do. Even shifting location at the place you're doing work or watch TV. Things that are very simple hacks and tweaks that could change your mindset and kind of rewire your brain eventually. That was just amazing to me, and Atomic Habits really impacted me.
Yeah, that's I read that a couple of months ago. That was a great book.
Yeah.
Some of the notes I had was kind of being keep it simple, right? In some of these things, you take it step by step, not trying to change everything at once.
Yeah.
And tracking, right? The idea is you're supposed to track every single day, whatever those actions are until they then, become muscle memory, and then they become your habit.
Yeah.
I think sometimes, we want this new habit, we want this new pattern, but then, we try to do it all at once and then we fail instead of, kind of growing incrementally. So yeah, it's great. I'll definitely recommend that book as well. So great. Where can listeners connect and find out more about you and your company?
Yeah, our company is Exponential Equity, so exponential-equity.com. And my email address is Hemal, Hemal, at exponential-equity.com. And I look forward to hearing from any of your listeners who are interested in scaling businesses, commercial real estate, passive or active. I'm happy to assist.
Great. Well, I appreciate your time and all your insight today, and I wish you the best of luck.
Thank you once again for inviting me here.
All right. Have a good one.
You too. Thanks.